touched, honored, flabbergasted, whatever it is that this many people came out to hear what I have to say. This is a crazy journey as an artist. You know, you work alone, you're by yourself, and does anyone even care what you're doing? You know, and actually I'll say, you know, that's partially what happened here with COVID, that I would go around out to Ohio or somewhere else in the country and have a show, and there's 3 faces I recognize. And during COVID, they're like, you want to show at Somerville Manning? I'm like, I'd see people I know. That might not be a bad thing. So that's when this started. Just to give you a little bit, some of you know my background, some of you don't. I grew up in this area. So this is how this ended up my first gallery. I had one of those DuPont families. You know, my dad moved everywhere. I'm one of 5 kids that were born in 5 different states. I'm the oldest. But that pivotal time from like 6th grade to 12th grade, my parents actually lived in Delaware. So I went to A.I. DuPont Elementary School, which is now probably a brouhaha. I went to Springer Middle School, junior high, and then I went to Brandywine High School. My parents then moved that senior year, and I stayed around. I went to University of Delaware. So I'm, you know, this is a homecoming coming back to here. It's funny, but I never thought about art. You know, I went to University of Delaware doing what, you know, my dad was a corporate guy, worked for DuPont. He was an engineer. I went to school electrical engineering at University of Delaware. Completely different background. My wife, who's standing over here in the fishing net pattern shirt, she gave me a set of oil paints as a Christmas present that senior year in college. Here I'd gone all the way through electrical engineering. She gave me a set of oil paints. I don't know how many of you are painters, but I had no idea what to do with oil paints. Sweetest gift ever. What do? I took painting 101. I had 1 elective left in college, and oh my goodness, did I love it. It was like my favorite thing in the world was that painting department, and I would go there. I'd stay till, you know, late in the night. I'd be painting, and the instructor was a guy named Robert Straight. If any of you all know, you know, he's a Delaware artist, but you know, call him Bob. But Bob, that's going to be confusing because Bob and Bob. But Bob said, "Gosh, why don't you stay around and get your master's? You know, this is what you love." And I said to him, I haven't even thought of this, but yeah, let's talk. You know, I want to be an artist now. And Bob said, well, great. How would you like to make your living? And I'm like, I'd like to be an artist now. What are you talking about? And he goes, well, no, I mean, most artists support themselves. And I went, well, you know, with some other means. And I said, well, what does that mean? And he goes, well, the majority become art teachers themselves, or they go on and become art professors, or, you know. And then he goes, and then a lot of them work another job to support their art. They might be a waiter or a waitress, or they're a bank teller, or I remember he listed all these things, and I went, I'm going to be an engineer, you know. So, and I said, someday I'm going to quit, and I'm going to be an artist. And Bob says, you know, just so you know, and I remember like it was so visible. He raised his hand. He goes, less than this many of my students have made it on their art alone, and I've got to call Bob and ask what that number is now, whether it's gotten less or more, you know, because it's definitely a unique career. But I have been doing it full time now, 28 years. So this is, I don't teach, I don't do anything else. I just paint, and it's been a really fun, enjoyable career for me. Crazy. I've had to learn a lot along the way, but you know, I started right here. I'll give you one other like pivotal thing in my life was when I started here, and if people knew me back then, I painted still life. I've always been a still life painter. For some reason, just right off the bat, I liked it. But still life is typically, you know, some fruit on a tabletop, a wine bottle, some grapes, you know, it's objects that you find. Often a still life painter might go to an antique shop, pick something out and go, that's cool, I'll paint it. It's not quite like what you're seeing here. And then I started getting bored with that and started adding some things. Maybe the apple on the table had a little sword stuck into it, or maybe, you know, I added more contemporary figures and things like that. And I went to an opening one time of my work, and I wish I remember who this collector was because it's another pivotal moment that changed my life. But he said, you know, you've changed the way I collect art. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, well, he goes, honestly, I'm very proud of my art collection. I've bought a lot of art. I've spent a lot of money on it. It's all over my house. And if someone knows art, they know what they're looking at. But majority of people aren't into art. They come into my house and it's very expensive wallpaper I have. And he goes, I'm proud of it. I don't regret any of it. He goes, but that new piece I bought of yours, it doesn't matter who it is, it's a conversation piece in our house. And I jokingly said to him, oh, I'm so sorry. My art's screaming, look at me. And he goes, no, but isn't that what art is supposed to do? It makes us communicate. Like we're talking about art, we're engaged with art. And I went, you know what? From this point on, I'm not just going to paint for painting's sake. I'm not going to just set up objects and go, oh, they're pretty. I like the way the light hits them. I'm going to start with a narrative. So from that point on, you see these people go, where do you get your ideas? People see me walking around town. I don't carry the whole stack, but just one at a time. I write all the time. I have worked my mind out to keep ideas going. Like it's keeping it so my kids would always kid me that like I'd go to a music program that they have at school and they're like, Dad, can we see the program? I'm like, no, it's embarrassing. But I hear a word, I hear something said, I write it down, I cut it out, I paste it in the notebook. These aren't like Andrew Wyeth notebooks where everyone's like a really pretty drawing. This is a mess. This is my ideas, but I need my sketchbooks for that. And I quickly draw these things down. Do I use them all? No, there's a lot of things in there that never, but that's how it works. Like you have to live with it, let it gestate. And I always have the next painting in mind. So just, and in a second I'm gonna open the floor. You guys can ask any questions you want. But last night there's a few questions that people asked me that I thought I'll get those out of the way real quick. People always ask me, can you make your own balloon dogs? And I kind of laugh because first of all, they don't ask me, can I do this stuff? But I can do something any clown can do. But I kind of joke and say, no, it's the most difficult thing in the world, the science of twisting balloons. So I keep a clown on retainer. And when I need him, I snap my fingers. He runs out of the closet, his floppy shoes going over, and I go red, and he twists me a red one, and then he goes back. And but no, I can twist balloon dogs, so that's one of them. The other thing, people go, what's your favorite piece in here? Or is that, like, do you always think of a theme? Funny thing is, I've been doing this a long, long time. I love it, and it sounds, trite or something to say. I hope my next painting's my favorite, or whatever's on my easel. But that's kind of the way I go. So a lot of people say, "Oh, is it so hard to give up your babies?" Or like this. In some ways. I've loved the process. I've loved them each along the way, and I'm glad when someone else gets them and has them and enjoys them. So I've just I'll say it's got to be cast of characters over there. My 1,000th sold painting. We're there. So that's a lot over the years. Because so I've given away 1,000 babies, if that's what people say. But it's not really that way. When it brings people joy. I'm really happy about it. So, but I think maybe I'll open it for a second, or if you just need me to talk about works. But like, it's funny. There's some pivotal moments, but maybe there's when I said 1,000 sold paint, maybe there's 1,000 pivotal moments too. That. A lot of times a young artist will go like, what is it that you did or what worked? And it's every step. It was never one show. It was never one magazine article. It was never one critic, never one gallery. It's like you tell young artists, you gotta do it all. This is not, oh, I had a show and it didn't do well, then do the next one. And so often my galleries have told me that I'm awful with that I'm thinking of the next thing while I'm in this one. But I know that there's no resting on your laurels. So it's like, I'm pleased, I enjoy it. Okay, now what's next? So that one I actually created. Sometimes you're sitting around waiting for a museum to do something, and I'm like, the object project was one where I got 15 artists from around the country. We all picked the same, we voted on objects to put in a painting, and we each painted 2 paintings, and then 5 museums around the country asked if they could have our show. So it was kind of a, created to see, to me it was a creative venture to go, how would, all of us at first thought everyone would see these same 5 objects the same way, but they were very different paintings. So it was fun to see what artists would do if you give someone this or whatever, everyone wouldn't just do the same way. You're getting me way back now. I think that show was 2007. So there was a hand mirror, a bone, a ball of string, a moth. It was actually a moth and a glass of water. So, and it's funny because we had this long list of things to vote on, and there were some that were like, I think on the list was like a trout or a handgun. I'm like, oh my gosh, those would be so you couldn't not see a trout in a painting. So those were very, I think somehow it was intuitively when we all voted, it came down to somewhat nondescript objects, but we all had these same ones. We had to buy 15 of the same glass and send to everyone, and it was kind of funny. I'm usually just one at a time, but they sit in the studio, so things do happen later. So and some of them evolve differently. Like for the most part, I have the idea and I go all the way to the end on it. A piece like around the corner, there's one called painter's doodling or an artist doodling, which sat in my studio for a while because I just kept adding to it. That one became an evolution, but usually they're not that way. So. Yes. It's funny. It's not as often as you think. Like I have paintings of my kids, and sometimes people laugh at this. And I've told this story before, but there was a piece one time we had in our kitchen that we both really loved, and people think I keep everything, but my dealer called me up and said, "Hey, where is that painting?" I said, "It's hanging in my kitchen." And he goes, "Can I sell it to a client?" And I said, "Well, let me call my wife. She loves it." And I called up Suzanne, and she goes, "No, I love it." And then she goes, "By the way, how much?" And I said, $26,000. She goes, "Yeah, it's gone." So, I wish I could afford my own art. So that's always, I see people say that, but, it's a funny thing. We're all figuring out how to make a living and what to do. So, it's hard to keep ones, and every once in a while you're like, I hope I'm stuck with that, or But then there's even like this one's really funny for me. I don't know if everyone enjoys it as much as I do, but it's kind of big for my house. So, but if you get stuck with it, you're like, that's fun. Yeah, I'm always life-size. So it's funny because every once in a while people talk about getting a small version of my paintings. I'm like, I just don't do that. Can you paint that but smaller? And it just doesn't make sense. I like the illusion. I like the trompe-l'oeil feeling to it. Yeah. There's a shop in Kennett that's maybe half mile, 3/4 of a mile from my house. And I was walking in there one time, and up on the wall was a taxidermied shark. And I'm like, and these things get in your brain like, oh, I know I'm going to use that. and so there, so I bought it and had to walk through town with that that shark over my shoulder. But yeah, so when you say about life, all these things, I do set things up. Now I couldn't quite, the balloon dog's not going to actually hold that, and but you kind of set things up and look, and even the bites out of those things, I did bite them all, and the only one that I couldn't get through was the watermelon. I thought I'm going to break a tooth, so I had to get a spoon and start it, but all the others I actually did. So it's kind of funny to think that they're all there. So even one with the peppers back there, that was more just one time I saw someone else's painting that was very traditional and it was serious and it had a cut pepper in it, and I could not see this goofy face. And so I'm like, I'm gonna just take advantage of it. So, things that I see encourage me to other ideas. I do everything, and even really, really bad TV. So, it's like with my daughters, I can talk about these bad dating shows and stuff. There's no way, and my wife knows, I fall asleep if we put something like that on at home. But in my studio, I can listen to stupid stuff. And almost if it's too intense, it's hard to pay attention to, or if it's too visual. So like, I remember when those new Star Wars movies came out. Well, they're not new anymore, but where everything is just ooh, ah, ee, ah, ooh, like, wow, I missed the whole movie. Like trying to, there's very little dialogue in that. Golf. But yeah, golf is one of those, you can't have basketball while you paint, or something that you have to, but golf is great. You turn around and see Tiger Woods or something. But that, it's just nice and easy to paint too. I feel like they're all individual, but I'm not afraid. I heard Wayne Thiebaud, I don't know if you know, he's like a pop artist, but he said one time, there's nothing wrong with going to the same well, just dig deeper. And I'm like, I like that idea, that like, because it used to be that I'd look at it and go, oh, I used up that idea 20 years ago. And I'm like, but now I feel comfortable going, ooh, I'm going to revisit that and make it better. So, I do that. And then some things become common. Like you mentioned the burgers back here. I'll have a whole series of excesses. I've done donuts and burgers and various things, hot dog. Although this one's kind of an excess of hot dogs, like it's, but I kind of enjoy that. Well, you know what? It's funny. When I made that change, in my career where I said I was going to go away from just painting traditional still life to having the narrative, I was like, I got to get away from the tabletop. Like every still life is on a tabletop, and I saw in an antique shop a crate once, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen anyone paint these. I kind of own them now. Like people say, like you have more crates than anyone in the. They go in my studio. I have all these, but the thing I liked is they've got the bright colors, and as a realist painter, they let me put text in. So often the text does add to it. The funny thing is people too go like, well, why don't you have wine crates or beer crates, or they're all soda pops. The wine and beer are all brown with a stamp on them. And if anyone notices, people say, what's your favorite color? Probably yellow. What's your least favorite color? Brown. I hate brown. So if you look at my show, people go, oh yeah. And most still life or traditional work is brown. and I very seldom go brown at all. So, but yeah, the words, you go, is there stuff in there? Sure. Yeah. Well, and it's a good point. One of the things that you can take my art at lots of different levels. And I'm content with that. Like there's a part where I like people being able to enjoy the painting the way they want. But so there might be a surface level where people go, oh, that's funny, that's cute. He's humorous. And then there might be levels where you go, gosh, that dialogue keeps, I wonder if he meant, people will ask me, did you know what you were doing in there? So I do have, these are what I think about. So, we're all in the world here. We're thinking about things. And so, does it show up? Absolutely. Am I going to point it out to you? Probably not. but I like that. I want. There's movies that are like funny. You see it once and it's never funny again. And then there's a movie like Big Lebowski that's funny the 100th time you've watched it. I feel like I try to do that with my paintings that someone could live with, and like I didn't go, oh, that's funny, and it's over. That they go, you know what, I can enjoy this for years, and I'm still seeing something. So, it's probably all self-portrait, if you think about it. But that's what you are. But I don't know. It's where you're at. I mean, I've done them a lot over the years. It's funny, no one knows this, but in my basement. and I never show them, but I paint my birthday picture every year. It's now starting to feel like this horrible Dorian Gray thing. So I don't know if I'll ever show them, but it's this weird collection of just marking my life. So they're there. Do I put them in here? You know, yeah. I mean, and they're hidden. There's four of my self-portraits in here. If you guys have, you know, and people have said I can only see 3. Check out the flower pot in the other room and figure that one out. So, yeah. You know, when I'm doing it, I'll sit there and work it out, and I kind of know roughly, you know, a crate's 4 inches high, it's 18 inches wide, 12 inches deep, you know, so I you know, I've done enough of them. And a lot of times now, do I always twist all the balloon dogs? No. I mean, I've done them enough, and I kind of know them. But
how to,
yeah, in my brain. So I'll sketch them out, and you know, if I want to see their shadow or something, I'll blow one up and see what's happening. The one thing about my studio, and people have said, oh, are you going to move somewhere else? I love my studio, and we've looked at other, like buying a house in the area. I rent from the American Legion in downtown Kennett, and it has a 8-foot by 12-foot picture window in the front that happens to be north light and 10-foot ceilings. So my easel can go up and down, and like any house I look around, I can't find a 10-foot ceiling for my easel, or, you know, it's just like, oh, I love having that, and that big of north light. So, you know.
That's the perfect light. Like,
Oh,
really
yeah.
Have to do it
It's not shifting throughout the day. So
Yeah.
like, you know, if you have it east, it comes in the, you know, like it's going to, you know, but that north light stays consistent, that I can put it there. And yeah, it changes throughout the season. Like I hate when we get to December and it's like, it's dark at 3 o'clock. It's just miserable because, you know, I'll get headaches because I'm like still trying to see. I have a lot. I mean, it's, you know, I am, and maybe because if you saw my art book collection, it outdoes, you know, most libraries, you know, and maybe because, and so many of my artists are like, artist friends are like, whew, I'm tired of this. It was my hobby that became my career, my passion, my enjoyment, and I look at so much, so it's almost hard to narrow it down. Like some people say, oh, my favorite artist is Andrew Wyeth or something. And I'm like, yeah, he's one of them. but it's almost like I'm one of those guys that would just sit there and list hundreds and hundreds, you know. So, and I also, you know, for my sketchbook, people see me with a sketchbook and an art book, because often I'll take an art book to lunch with me too. And it's different, like depending on what do I feel like today. You know, I'm gonna look at David Park or, you know, like de Kooning or something. You know, I grab the right book for my lunch at that day and see. Yeah. You know, I don't, and it's funny, but I had to do it once when you talked about Evansville. I had to be in the artist in residence for a week and teach morning and night, and it was like my least favorite week of my life. So some people are made to be teachers, and my wife is a teacher, and she always hates it when I say that. But I just, there's something about, like, I just wanted to be a painter, and I do it, and so I haven't, other than that one week. You know, and it's funny because I get mad because I think a lot of people don't understand it, is we all grow up. I mean, I hate to say I turned 60 this year. You know, it's like, oh, but you know what you want, you know, at each point in life and stuff, and there's just a giant practicality to it that I spent a week on it. I'm not going to sell a painting for $100. You know, like if I spent 50 hours on it, at my age, at my point in life, and as I grow, and I've got kids that I put through college, and you know, I got to pay the mortgage, I got to buy a car, whatever. You're like, what do I want to do? And you kind of go like, here's where it's at. Do I wish it took off and all my paintings were $1 million a piece? That'd be fabulous. But I think for the most part, I'm pretty practical. You know, like I've lived a reasonable life, nice life, but I'm not I'm not changing the world with my money. but it is a high price thing. You know, like so. I can do variations, but in some ways I get bored doing that. You know, like if you've already done it, like I don't feel like doing that again. So you have to figure out how to change it, and you know, and then it's also still hard because if I paint it again and the next person wants it, it's gone again. So you know, it's yeah. So the ones I end up with are more often, you know, my self-portraits or my things that are in the house. I have a few. I have one up in our bedroom now that I'm like, yeah, I didn't even show you guys because I just want to keep it. So you know, and often I'll show I'll let those out for museum shows. So a lot of these I was hanging on to, and I unwrapped them from my last museum, and I'm like, you know, it's time to sell them if people want them. And but maybe I don't. You know, I didn't go to art school, so when people talk about doing a lithograph or, you know, other things, you know, I know many things, but no, I've never, you know, worked in, you know, many different types of mediums. You know, Suzanne, you know, I guess I had some watercolors before, but when I did oils, I was like, yeah, I'm done. You know, I like it. You know, it's worked for me. I like the way the slightly slower drying time and just the whole thing about it. It's funny. It's changed throughout your career. You know, early on, people used to come up to you all the time with it because it was you're a talented realist painter and you're hungry, so you do it. So and then I started getting tired of doing a lot of commissions. And then it's funny, during COVID, when COVID happened, like my New York gallery was closed, you know, like for a long time, and people would call up the gallery and say, do you have a Robert Jackson about this size? Because back then everyone was stuck at home, they needed things, and they're like, no, but we'll call it, and I'm sure you'll do it. Before that, I would do about 2 commissions a year. During what I'd call the COVID time, I did 35 commissions in a row. And it sounds like, you know, I made way much more, but no, you're dealing with, you know, negotiating and talking about things. And partially too, though, if I say those 35 commissions, they all look like me because I've gotten to the point in my career that like, hey, if you're just looking for a talented realist, there's someone that'll do it for you for $1,000. You know, go do it. But if you're spending the money for me, it should look like me. So I would often, like sometimes people would come up with an idea. I'm like, I hear you. Let's shift to this. And you know, most of the time that kind of worked. You know, so and if it didn't, I you know, if I wasn't overly hungry, I wouldn't do it. So. I was seeing if the publisher's here, but yeah, it might be coming up again soon. So it's funny. I did that book in 2012, which means all the images went there in 2011, which is now 13 years ago. So I've at least painted 350 paintings since then. So people were looking at that book and like, are any of these available? I'm like, no, everything in that book's long gone. So, and you know, I'm one of those fortunate artists that, you know, pretty much everything goes. You know, it might take a little time. You know, it's funny. You can have a piece in, you know, here, and then if it doesn't sell and I ship it up to New York, like someone sees it the first day and buys it. So it can be a year in one place and vice versa. So it's a funny career because it's not like, you know, like a musician or a pop singer needs tens of thousands of people to buy their single. I need one person for each painting, you know, and there is that one person that goes, okay, I love that. That'd be fun to have. And so it's definitely a different type of career. Sure. Well, thank you.